In a shocking escalation of political unrest, South Africa's parliament opened its session this morning in a scene of unprecedented chaos. What was meant to be a routine parliamentary proceeding quickly descended into turmoil as members of the opposition Democratic Alliance executed a full-scale shutdown of the African National Congress, the ruling party. The normally orderly and disciplined environment of Parliament transformed into a scene of pandemonium, with lawmakers from the opposition storming the chambers, effectively halting all proceedings. Their objective was clear: to demand the immediate resignation of President Sir Ramaphosa, whose leadership has been increasingly scrutinized in the face of corruption allegations, economic stagnation, and accusations of state capture. Observers watching the unfolding events were stunned, describing scenes of shouting, scuffling, and continuous chanting that had no precedent in South Africa's parliamentary history. The disruption began at the very start of the session, signaling that this was not a spontaneous outburst, but a meticulously organized attempt to confront the government directly. Opposition leaders armed with signs, banners, and microphones flooded the parliamentary floor, loudly accusing the ANC of mismanagement, incompetence, and the abuse of official powers. Their voices echoed through the chambers, demanding immediate accountability and calling for the president to step down. Among the chaos, one senior official could be heard shouting above the din, declaring that the people of South Africa had reached the end of their patience. "Ramaphosa has to go. Go now," he bellowed. "He has failed this country, and his continued tenure threatens the stability of our democracy." Despite repeated pleas from parliamentary officials urging lawmakers to maintain decorum and adhere to established procedures, their appeals were ignored. Whistles, chants, and boisterous shouts continued unabated, overpowering any attempt to restore order. Security forces were dispatched multiple times to intervene, but each attempt was met with resistance, leaving Parliament in a state of complete disarray. The unrest, however, was not confined to the halls of Parliament. Outside the complex, supporters of the opposition gathered in large numbers, waving flags and banners denouncing President Ramaphosa and the ANC. Streets around Parliament came to a standstill as protesters blocked traffic, their chants echoing across the city. Calls for a formal investigation into allegations of corruption and financial impropriety dominated the demonstrations, with protesters insisting that accountability was long overdue. As the day progressed, confrontations between demonstrators and security personnel became increasingly intense. Tear gas was deployed and clashes erupted, indicating that tensions had reached a boiling point. Analysts observing these events noted that the bold actions of the Democratic Alliance were not mere political posturing, but a reflection of widespread frustration and anger among the South African public, which appeared to have reached its limit. This political upheaval highlighted deeper systemic problems within the ANC. Since President Ramaphosa assumed office, the party has struggled to address long-standing issues such as corruption, economic mismanagement, and allegations of state capture. Many within South Africa have grown disillusioned with the ruling party's inability to confront these challenges, and the day's events can be seen as a tipping point. Parliamentary proceedings, normally marked by structured debate and orderly discourse, devolved into chaotic accusations. Opposition lawmakers openly read out allegations of corruption, citing government spending scandals and secretive deals involving the president. Some members even presented physical evidence on the chamber floors, pointing to financial irregularities at the highest levels of government. The ANC attempted to respond, calling for procedural adherence and decorum, but their efforts were drowned out by the relentless noise of chants, protests, and confrontational rhetoric. The events in Parliament quickly spilled over onto social media. Live clips showing lawmakers engaged in heated confrontations circulated widely, fueling the intensity of the crisis. Hashtags calling for President Ramaphosa's resignation began trending across the country within minutes, capturing the attention of millions of South Africans and attracting international scrutiny. Observers from abroad expressed surprise at the unprecedented scale of political unrest, noting that such overt confrontations are unusual in a country widely regarded for its relatively smooth democratic processes. Analysts warned that the political fallout could reshape public trust in the ANC and potentially alter party allegiances, creating ripple effects that would extend well beyond the halls of Parliament. public demonstrations quickly escalated throughout the country. Cities such as Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban witnessed thousands of citizens flooding the streets in protest, holding signs, chanting slogans, and organizing spontaneous rallies demanding the immediate removal of the ruling party. The sheer scale of the demonstrations disrupted everyday life, with businesses closing early and traffic coming to a standstill. In some areas, clashes with law enforcement were reported, raising concerns about the possibility of broader unrest that could destabilize not only the government, but the social and economic fabric of the nation. Many protesters expressed a deep sense of betrayal and anger, emphasizing that their demands were not limited to a single individual, but encompassed a broader call for systemic accountability and transparency in governance. The intensity of the protests, coupled with the disorder within Parliament, underscored the severity of the political crisis. Experts observed that the events marked a critical turning point in South African politics. They suggested that the unrest could not be dismissed as a transient episode. Rather, it reflected long-standing frustrations among both the public and opposition parties, frustrations that had been simmering for years. The Democratic Alliance's aggressive approach and the overwhelming public response highlighted a growing impatience with the perceived ineffectiveness of the ANC's leadership. Furthermore, the protests demonstrated the interconnectedness of public sentiment and parliamentary action, showing that political accountability is no longer confined to legislative chambers, but now extends to the streets and social media platforms, amplifying its impact and urgency. The political ramifications of this chaos are yet to be fully realized. Whether President Ramaphosa can withstand mounting calls for his resignation and maintain his position remains uncertain. Analysts predict that the coming days will be crucial in determining whether Parliament can regain control or if the unrest will continue to escalate, potentially threatening the stability of the entire nation. International attention has intensified, with global observers closely monitoring developments in South Africa. The world's eyes are focused on how the country will navigate this unprecedented crisis, with implications that could affect diplomatic relations, economic confidence, and the nation's democratic credibility. In summary, the events of today represent one of the most dramatic episodes in South African political history. The storming of Parliament, the nationwide protests, and the unprecedented public outrage signify a critical juncture for the ANC and the country at large. What began as a parliamentary session has evolved into a nationwide reckoning, exposing deep-seated frustrations and challenging the resilience of the nation's democratic institutions. The outcome remains uncertain, but the message is unmistakable. South Africans have reached a breaking point, and their demand for accountability and effective governance can no longer be ignored. The unfolding situation has the potential to redefine political power dynamics, reshape public trust, and leave a lasting imprint on South Africa's political landscape for years to come. As citizens, lawmakers, and international observers wait anxiously, one fact is clear. The nation has been shaken to its core, and South Africa may never return to the political status quo that once prevailed. The next days, perhaps weeks, will be decisive in determining whether this upheaval will lead to meaningful reform or further destabilization. And the eyes of the world remain firmly fixed on the unfolding drama.